To the next installment in my video lecture series in economics. And in this particular video lecture, I'm going to be taking a look at a question from the public finance course that related to utility, calculating marginal utility, looking at utility maximization from the utilitarian versus Rawlsian approaches. So we're going to review that because a number of students had issues with some of the calculations. So here's the data table that was given in your textbook. It gives us the number of oranges consumed, 1 to 8, and it gives us the level of utility associated with those oranges. It goes from 11 to 51. So if I consume 8 oranges, I will get utility of 51 units. If I consume 5, I will get 4 units. If I consume 2, I will get 21. And this represents the utility function for both Friday and Caruso. So we're talking about two individuals, but they have the same utility function. Marginal utility is just the incremental increase in utility from the consumption of an additional unit. So if I go from consuming 1 orange to 2 oranges, we're looking at how much our total utility increases because of that. Now, for the first orange, marginal utility is going to be equal to utility. This is because of when we consume 0 oranges, we generate 0 units of utility from the consumption of oranges. So if I consume 0 oranges and I get 0 units of utility, the first orange I consume increases my utility to 11. So I go from 0 to 11. The marginal utility from that first orange is equal to 11. Moving for the rest of the cells, what we can do is we can type the equal sign, and that tells Excel that we're going to be entering a formula. And what I want to do is take 21, which is the data in column C4, and from that I want to subtract what is in column C3, which tells us the total utility or the utility from 1 orange. So we're looking at, as we increase our consumption by 1 unit, how much does my utility increase? And by consuming the second orange, my utility increased by 10 units. So the marginal utility of the second orange is equal to 10 units. Now we could take that formula and copy it down to give us the remainder of the results. Okay, so when I have 2 oranges, I have 21 units of utility. I consume a third orange, that raises my utility to 30. The increase is 9 units. I go from 30 to 38, 8 units. 38 to 45, 7 units. So that is our marginal utility. For this cell right here, marginal utility is equal to 1, because when I increase my consumption from 7 to 8, my total utility went up by 1 unit, so that 8th orange contributed 1 unit of utility. So that was the first part of the question. The next part of the question had you drawing some graphs from this information, drawing a total utility curve and a marginal utility curve. All right, we can do that very simply by using Excel and using the graph function. I mean, if you want to do it by hand, that's fine. This is just, to me, you get a better product and it's probably more effective, but you'll probably be quicker doing this way. All right, so I highlight utility. I want to insert a line graph, line with markers, and there we go. Excel gave us the graph we were looking for. Now we probably want to do a couple of things. We really don't need this legend here because it already tells us this is utility. If we had multiple items on here, we would want to have a legend. So we could just highlight this and hit delete, get rid of it. Also, one of the things we want to do is to increase the size of these fonts. Okay. So let's say we want to increase that. Chart title. Let's make it 18 make it a little bit bigger. I think I'll make the other ones 18. I'll make that one 24. Okay. So all I'm doing here is just sort of prettying up the graph so it's a little bit easier to see. The horizontal axis, the font is 9. Let me make that 18. Okay. Also, I want to put an axis title in. Whoa, am I in the wrong axis here? Here's the vertical axis. We go to the horizontal axis is what I was looking for. So we have that at 18. I want to have an axis title. And that axis title is going to be the number of bananas. Number of bananas. I guess I should spell bananas correctly. And the font of that, make 18. Okay? And let's do the same thing for the y-axis, the vertical axis. The vertical axis, make that 18, font 18, and the axis title, that is going to be utility. And that font, we will also make 18. All right, so there you go, over a couple minutes. Nice little graph. One of the other things you might want to do is to actually show what these data types are. So for example, if you want to know what each of those points actually represents, if you just go to Series Utility, okay, marker options, data labels. We want data labels. And we also want this category name. So that'll give us the Cartesian coordinates of those different data points. And we can go in as well, data labels, and go in and change the font to 18 again. And as you can see, it kind of overlaps on the graph in the background, so we can go back there, mark our data labels, and we can tell it where we want to put it, above, below. So I check below, and that's a little bit better. I think maybe with this font, I'll make the font a little bit smaller. So the series utility, data labels, font, let me go down to 14, maybe 12. There you go. So there is your graph from the first section. So hopefully, you can review this. As you can see, I spent a lot of the time sort of making it look a little bit better. It's good to do that because what you're doing is you're showing the effort that you're trying to make your output a little more presentable. I mean, obviously, you would have gotten credit if you had done none of the modifications to make it more readable. However, somebody who puts forth the effort to make it more readable, obviously, it makes that submission more valuable. Now, we could do the same thing with marginal utility. Just highlight marginal utility, insert, line with markers. There you go. The second part of the question. Again, all you have to do is to go through and I pretty it up a little. Just make it look a little bit better so it's a little more readable. Go in here, go in, take the chart title, change the font. I made it a little bit bigger because it was the title of this. We don't need the legend. Again, in general, you only use the legend if you've got multiple items on here. For example, if this was a supply and demand graph, you could put, because you have supply and demand, you would have a legend to distinguish between supply and demand. So we really don't need that. Let's delete that. Let me go in here. The horizontal axis, 18 points. Let's say I want the axis title. That axis title is, again, number of oranges. And I will make that 18 as well. Vertical axis, again, 18. Axis title, marginal utility, and make that 18. And then we go down to the series marginal utility. I want data labels and include the category name. And what did I do? Make it 12 previously, and let me put it above, on top. There you go. Was it number of oranges? Number of bananas. I'm sorry. I mistakenly put bananas here when this should have been oranges. Excuse me. Unfortunately, when you get older, you do stupid things like that. My apologies for that. So you can see, for marginal utility, we did the same exact process. We created our data table. We calculated marginal utility, which was the incremental increase in utility from the consumption of one additional unit. Here, oranges. Okay? So incrementally, it was an increase from 11 to 21. That means the marginal utility of the second orange is equal to 10, etc. So we calculated this all the way through using Excel, and then we graphed it using the graphing function. So I'm hoping this was of some help to students. It seemed like this particular problem was a great deal of difficulty getting started. I'm going to have another video related to this because there's another portion of this that people had some difficulty with. So hopefully this will be of some help to you.